So this is a good example. This is an overgrown ditch, for lack of a better term. And if you look around this field, this is a giant soccer field that they created in this park. My guess would be that when they were excavating this land, initially they had to take down all these trees. This growth over here is obviously a younger generation of saplings. Those trees in the background are a bit older. But my guess is when they excavated this land, they initially took down all the trees. When they were excavating for this soccer field, this field, in other words, is artificial. After all of the dirt was moved, they obviously planted the sod and the grass, and this was left as a form of drainage. Now, if we come here, we might be able to see, if you come to the lowest spot in this drainage field, I'm willing to bet, yep, there is in fact a dry well. This is a plastic, some kind of plastic material is used. A cavity is dug into the ground so that the water can basically soak, so that the water doesn't just sit and become basically a really sloppy pond. So this to me looks like some kind of drainage, so that the water from either side of this ditch comes down into the lowest point. In landscaping, the biggest thing that you have to take into account above anything else, the first thing is water. And that's something that I've learned over the years. You always have to take into account the movement of water. And water goes where it wants to go. It goes where the earth, literally gravity, pulls it. So whenever you're building any kind of feature out of land, whether it's just a plain old leveling of a field like this, or if it's a retaining wall or whatever around your basement, maybe a nice garden, you always have to take into account water. And that's part of the reason this ditch was here. But suppose you didn't want this, like suppose you bought this property as your own and it had this feature in it, but you didn't want a giant, I mean, look at this, it's like a giant lump in the ground. Who wants that if you're out here with your quad, you know, whatever. The first thing you would want to do is remove, it's pretty simple, you fill the hole up. you would remove this drainage here. You would bring in topsoil and make the soil level to whatever the feature you wanted it level with. Say if you wanted this as a flat plane, you would add topsoil to here. And I would recommend in this situation, before you put on the topsoil, you get rid of the sod, obviously, because this will just turn into muck. And you would actually add maybe a thin couple-inch layer of gravel, which would help to drain. Because I don't know how much you have ever dug into the ground, but a lot of times there are actual layers in the ground that account for the settling of water, so that like when the rains come, there's always, you know, a top layer of dirt, and then there'll be like a layer of gravel. So it's all to do again with the movement of water and how things settle into the earth. So that if you just had, say, from this level to here, maybe 24 inches up or so, if you had all of this topsoil, and this is where you have to kind of anticipate the flow of water, all of this is just dirt. When the rains come, this is all compressed when it drains away. So what you'd wind up happening in the end, after all the water went away, your level of dirt would start here, but it would end up more like here without any kind of drainage. So that's why you would add an initial layer of stability, meaning gravel or rocks or whatever, to the bottom, and then put the dirt on top, because dirt is notoriously squishy. It soaks in water like a sponge, and then water slowly drains from it, and as the water drains, it drags the dirt. And really, it's like geological. That's why all of the landscape itself. Like if you just look around at the landscape of Michigan, for example, with the glaciers and with, I mean, it goes back for like millions of years. It's an interesting science, but that's why the land has the shape that it does. That's why there are valleys and dips, because of what, it's all water. It's all water flow. So that's the number one thing you have to take into account when you're dealing with your own property, and especially minute details like this. All right, that's good.